So you're probably here because you want to remove the oil tank from your Harley Davidson motorcycle. You've definitely come to the right place. Welcome back, Bikeaholics. Ryan Urlacher here with lawabidingbiker.com. Thanks for checking back in. In today's video, I'm going to teach you everything you need to know step by step. We're going to show you if you have a Harley Davidson and it's actually equipped with an oil tank up here, we're going to show you how to remove that bad boy and get it out of your way. You might need to get it out of your way for many, many reasons. One might be to get at the starter that's underneath it. Of course, there's other reasons if you want to paint it or powder coat it, things like that. Anyways, let's get to it. Let's get our hands dirty and start wrenching, huh? Just gonna remove the seat, need to get at the battery. Oftentimes a Phillips back here. I just have an aftermarket thumb screw here on this bike. This 2007 Softail Night Train. I will tell you, we're doing this on a lift table. We're doing it on a Titan 1000D lift table so we can get better shots for you guys. It makes working on bikes really nice. You can do this project on the kickstand, but it does help to have the bike level. It'll just make things easier on you, especially if you can lift it up with a Titan lift jack, or you can just get a wheel chock, a Titan wheel chock, so at least the bike's level in your garage. You can do it right on the kickstand if you want. And if you guys are interested in any Titan lifts or jacks or chocks, we are a distributor. We'd like to help you get hooked up with one. Head over to lawabidingbiker.com/store. All right, we're gonna get this battery out of here, and it sits down in the oil tank. So come on in closer, I'll show you what we're doing here. So the first thing we're gonna do, just remove the battery. It sits down in the oil tank. We need to free this up. 10 millimeter, yes. Seeing more metric stuff on Harleys all the time. We'll take the battery off here. Negative terminal, and then I'm going to move over and we'll do the positive terminal so that we can free this thing up. All right, and I'm just finishing up here, getting the positive side off, the negative side's off, of course. You need to remember what accessories that you have. You know, if like here's a, this looks like a battery tender. Yeah, so battery tender out. But anyways, that's just one accessory. You can see all these coming off the positive cable. You're going to be responsible when you put this back together to make sure, you know, so take a picture. Everybody's got smartphones now. Do whatever. I'm comfortable. I just got two leads and then the positive. So when I put this thing back together, start yourself a little parts dish so you know where everything goes. We'll move on. All right, just moving everything out of the way so I can clear the battery. This just sits down in here on a Softail. You may have to get some extra stuff depending on your particular model and year. And then there we go. We should be able to pull that battery right out of there like so. All right, now right up front here of the oil tank are two 1/2 inch bolts that I'm working on in here. And we're not gonna take these all the way out. We're just gonna loosen them. And again, we're just gonna loosen everything at this point because we need to work on some oil lines here in a minute. And at the very end, we'll take these all the way out, but just getting them loose, but still threaded. All right, and with a 7/16 inch socket, I'm gonna work on this splash guard. There's two bolts right at the bottom of it up in here. And that's what I'm working on right now. There's one on this side and then one on the other side. And then once I get these loose, I'm gonna back them both all the way out. And at the top of this particular guard, there's a tongue. And once we get those bolts out, there's just a plastic tongue that holds the top portion. And then we can slide this whole splash guard down, which will give us access to the rear of the oil tank where there's some additional bolts that we need to take off. All right, just getting the last bolt out, again, two across the bottom. And then the splash guard, there's just a tongue up in here. You kind of gotta pull up a bit, and then you can just slide this splash apron right down there underneath the tire. And I'm just gonna let it sit at this point. If you wanted to, this gives me access to the bolts that I need in the back of the oil tank. If you want to, you can certainly drop the rear wheel if you like, if that just makes it easier for you. Head over to lawabidingbiker.com/rear wheel. We have a free video over there on how to do that. But I don't find it necessary for this project, so I got plenty of room up in here now. All right, now with a 3/8 inch socket, I'm gonna go right up in here, and you'll see some bolts back up in here, two of them. And they just hold a wiring harness. It's kind of an organizer, and it's just a plastic organizer, but we do need to get it out of our way when we start undoing the oil tank here. So that is what I'm gonna be working on right now. And then we'll actually just kind of leave it up in there, but we'll pull it out of our way. All right, and I'm just finishing getting this last little bolt out. Once you do that, this breaks free. and it'll be free of the oil tank now. We just kind of let it hang back in there. That's really all we need to do with that. All right, and with a 1/2 inch, you could use a socket. This is just a ratchet wrench. There's 2 bolts up in here to hold the back of the oil tank. And at this point, I'm just gonna work on those, getting them loose. Now, on these are just like the ones we worked on up here. We're gonna loosen them most of the way, but we're gonna leave them just partially threaded at this point so that we don't completely unsecure the oil tank, because we wanna work on some lines first. But that's all I'm working on at this point. Before we move any farther in the project, there's oil in this oil tank. Before I undo any lines or anything like that, we're gonna go ahead. The easiest way is just to drain the oil tank. If you come right underneath here, and underneath here, a 5/8 inch is the actual engine oil drain plug. And I'm gonna have my, of course, pan there. And then I'm gonna loosen this thing up and start draining all this oil out of this oil tank. Some people will tell you that, you know, you can pinch the oil line there and save your oil. Yeah, you probably can if you have a clamp. You know what? And then you gotta take these off up here. We'll get to that. When you're pulling that out of there and jockeying it, you can just cause a mess. So it's just easier for me just to drain the oil tank. That's what I suggest. It'll make everything cleaner and easier for you. We can always put oil back in when we're done. And if you guys want to get our very popular maintenance videos, oil change every 5,000 and your safety inspection, save yourself a ton of money, don't have to take it to the dealership, head over to lawabidingbiker.com/Harley maintenance. We cover touring, dynas, softails, everything. It's all combined in a couple video files, and man, you can really start saving yourself some money. Head over there, lawabidingbiker.com/Harley maintenance. All right, and we're just got the plug out, and we're just draining the oil. We'll give it a moment to get all the oil, as much as we can, out of the oil tank. There will still be some residual. There's no way to get it all the way out. All right, just so you know what we have going on here, guys. This is your oil lines. Of course, the tank's all pretty loose. You can move it around. We got the bolts up there. The bolts in the rear, of course, they're waiting to be taken out. Feed line, guys, this is right out of your oil tank. This is feed line, just so you know. This next one is your return line that returns the oil back in, and then the last one is your vent line. You can see it kind of has a clip here, an organizer clip, and we're just gonna pop that off. That way we can get these lines, and we have play. The reason we got so much play in this tank and loosen those bolts, now we don't have to force these lines off as much. We'll have some more play. Back here, there's these little pinch clamps is what I call them, guys, these factory pinch clamps. Of course, we're gonna remove this one. That'll loosen up this line so we can free it. Don't forget there's a main line back here that runs straight down underneath the oil tank, straight down to where we actually drain the oil out of the oil tank, and there's a nipple down there, and there's another pinch clamp. There's a zip tie down there that zip ties it to another line. We're gonna be clipping that off, just freeing some stuff up so when we take this tank off, this line can come with it. So with these, you can certainly go just clip these off. You can cut them off and then just get new ones at the dealership. You can also, I'm just taking angle cutters, and let me bring you in a little closer so you know what we're looking at here. All right, so now that you're in here closer, you can see what we're working with. But these pinch clamps, guys, you can just cut them off if you want. Some guys just cut them, and you can do that. You can go to your dealership and get new ones. I'm just using angle cutters. And I just kind of get underneath here. I would work this one just a little bit. But like even if I was going to do that one, I'm not going to do this one. But you just kind of get in there with the tips, and you just start prying back and forth, get these things loosened up. I will clip these off. I have some sharper angle cutters here. But anyways, that just gets this freed up and out of our way. And now you can see that this is free. Of course, this goes in here a ways, so you don't want to be fighting your lines trying to pop this. There is going to be residual oil in there, so make sure you get your rag up in there and all that, like so it will drip a little bit. And then we'll actually wait till, the oil tank's pretty free, but we'll wait till we actually free those other bolts. That'll give us some ability to move this line around, and we'll have enough play to get this out of here. All right, now we're going to remove the return line and then the vent line. Just got little collars over it here. You can just kind of twist them, and they just pull back real simple like that. I'll get both of these out of our way. And then all there are is little plastic clips up in here. You just pinch them. There's one there and one on the bottom on both of these. You pinch. And you have to get both hands in there maybe. And then, again, this tank, that's why we loosened it. It gives us some play. And then we can pull those out of there. I'm going to do the same with this one. The thing you want to do with these guys is inspect these little clips here. You can get these at your dealership, of course, because when we snap them back in, we want to make sure everything seals up good. So just inspect them. If they look good, reuse them. If not, or if they're cracked, if they're brittle, then go down to your dealership, get new ones, and they just slide on and off here. And that way you'll be good to go when you put this back on. Right now, I'm just going to take some tape. I've just got some good old electrical tape and just put a little piece of electrical tape over both of these just to make sure nothing gets down in my system. And if they have any residual on them, of course, they can leak a little bit. And then I'll take a piece of tape just to keep everything tidy and out of my way when I'm pulling this tank. I'll just kind of tape them together like that. It gets them up out of our way so we can get this tank. And then we'll get that when we start removing the tank out, this bottom one. All right, guys, and literally I'm just working on this line, this main oil drain line. There's a pinch clip, of course. We showed you what that looked like. And it's also zip tied to another line just to kind of keep everything tidy. And just remember when you put this all back, if you need to put another zip tie back in place, you don't want stuff, you know, hanging on each other and stuff. Make sure you keep everything organized. So that's all I'm working on, and we'll get this free. All right, and I'm just finishing up here, guys, with this clamp. And I just want you guys to know, you know, that you can go up, this line runs here. There's another clip up behind the oil tank. You can pop it there. You just got to free this line to the drain port, and this is just what worked for me. So now that I have that, I can get under here and I can just pull up, and you'll see that nipple just goes right into the line there, and this is going to free it up there. And then I'll just have to contend with this line when I pull the oil tank out a little bit, but really that's up to you, wherever you can get your hands in. All right, just want to get you guys a shot down in here of what I was working on, of course. That's what we took out there. Of course, I got tape on it now. Get that out of our way, and then you can see the rubber boot where I pulled it out and took the clamp off there. That goes to that oil drain plug underneath. So that's where I decided it's a steel line on up, and it goes through, of course, and then it ends up right there on the back of the oil tank. You could take it off right here if you wanted to, but my line's free now down there, so this whole thing will come out with the oil tank. Again, that's really up to you. Just remember there is residual, and have towels down and stuff because you're going to leak. Hopefully you're enjoying the video. If you want to make sure that content and these free videos keep coming your way, there is a way you can support us. Head over to lawabidingbiker.com/Patreon, Patreon. The community is growing over there. We'd like to have you involved too. There's no risk over there. You can sign up for a certain level and pay a certain amount per piece of content with a cap. Absolutely no risk. There are some benefits over there. T-shirts and a private Facebook group and some premium content. All depends on what level you sign up as. But that is a way that you can assure the content keeps coming your way. lawabidingbiker.com/Patreon, Patreon. Of course, if you ever want to just leave a flat donation, we do accept that too and appreciate it. lawabidingbiker.com/donate. Don't forget to check out that weekly podcast, guys. It's on fire. Ton of content we're putting out. Get involved over there. It's a Law Abiding Biker podcast. All right, let's get back into your video. All right, once you get that line, guys, of course, don't forget I had some rags down and stuff. Has some residual oil. We can't drain it all out of the tank, so I'm just cleaning it up. That's the nipple that goes in down there, and don't forget I'll have to get a new clamp for it. Put it back down in the rubber hose there. I'm just gonna, for now, put a little of this duct tape over this so it doesn't leak anymore. And now this, of course, this line here will come out with the oil tank when we pull it out. Okay, now I'm just working. Remember, we loosened the bolts on the back. They're hand tight. I'm pulling those out, and I'll get both of them out. There they are. I'll set those aside. And then I've got the two up top here. Remember, when we very first started, we loosened these up. And that is basically, once I get these two out, gonna free my whole oil tank. Okay, I've got those two out. Those went up there. Set those aside. Now this entire oil tank is free, you can see. Now, we're gonna have to work as we work it out of here. There's wire bundles and stuff, hanging stuff up. We might have to cut it looks like we may have to cut a few zip ties. before we can continue to work this thing all the way out. And don't forget, we have this bottom line. As we work it out and spin it, you can see it's already coming free. We'll be able to spin that and get it out. So let's take a look at what we got here, and then we'll start working on getting this all the way out. So we've got the whole oil tank free. This is where it helps to have a second set of hands. I got Lurch here helping me, and that way he can kind of guide all the wires. Some of them are zip tied in the oil tank, so make sure you snip those, free everything, and we're just going to work this tank out together right now. And of course I got the line over here, remember the feed line, and as I work the tank, and you kind of got to work it back and forth. Be careful not to bang stuff up. And of course we've got the starter wire that actually has to go down through the tank. And I've got my feed line off now. And now we're just working the tank out, and you can kind of just spin it out like so. And I've just got this line here. I've got a line down here. And this is our main feed line, or our drain line, remember, that I took off for the oil drain. And there we go. All right, and so we're just putting the oil tank back in now. Of course, we've got our starter all buttoned up. I made sure the wires, this positive cable has to go up through the oil tank, remember? That's the direct positive to the starter. And I have a second pair of hands, of course, Lurch on the other side of the bike there. This is a good time to have a second pair of hands because there's just a lot of manipulating stuff we have to do. And remember, as I'm sliding this in, guys, I'm handing this positive through. He's got a hold of it. You kind of just got to angle this tank. And then also at the same time, we're working this through. Don't forget I have this line that went down to drain the oil. So I'm going to work this. I'm actually going to pull it back a little bit. And we're working together here. I'm going to run that line down there so it ends up in the right place. All right, now we're going to work this through. And then at the same time, remember my bottom feed line, I'm taking and I'm going to actually make sure, because we have some play on the tank and it's leaking a little bit because I had duct tape on it. We'll just get that off. Be aware of that. This is the real deal, guys. And then I'm just going to work this back in, and I'm going to get that bottom feed line hooked back in. There we go. All right, my bottom feed line's hooked back in. Just wipe up a little oil. And this is why two hands, guys. This is really how it's going. So we want to show you guys we got some wires that we're making sure they're not pinched. There are oil tanks seated back up in there. Now we can make sure all the wires go where they're supposed to go, and we can start working on getting bolts back in. So guys, remember, I went through this taking it off. I got really detailed. So remember, the oil drain line runs right down the back here. And remember, I disconnected it down in there, and I showed you guys shots of that when we were taking it apart. We've got the clamps back there. I went to Harley Davidson and bought these ear clamps. EAR clamps is what they're called. These pinch type clamps is what I like to call them. I put the ear clamp down here where the oil drain line is, so we're good there. I've got that hooked back up. I have not put any bolts back in the oil tank. We simply got it in place. The reason is I want some play when I'm working these lines back, and it gives me a little play to mess with stuff. As you can see, I can pull this tank to the side a little bit, and we can get these lines hooked up. So I'll clamp this in a minute, and I put this feed line in back when we were putting the tank in because I needed some play with it. So remember these, I've inspected these. These are good. These are these little pinch clamps, and this is, remember, your vent line. And so I'm just gonna have to manipulate this tank a little bit, and you see the feed line came off. That's okay. That's why we didn't bolt the tank in yet. We want to be able to get these all in. So I'm going to pinch these, and the more lined up you can get this tank, the easier these lines will go in. So that one popped in. I'm going to do the same with this one. You hear it snap. You hear those. Remember, you pinch those connectors to pull them out. Now I can work my feed line, and we'll work this tank back into place. Okay, and again, that's why we haven't bolted the tank back. We got those. I'm popping the collars back up on. They're just little decorative collars, no big deal. And my tank's still loose, which is why we don't have the bolts in. Now I can put my feed line back in again. And then we've got these little pinch clamps. ear clamps is what they're called. We got them at the dealership to replace. I've just got some handy little cutters here, and they actually work good because you can pinch it on both sides. Make sure it's in place. We can just pinch that down like so, and we've got that replaced. So now we can start working on bolts. All right, and so I'm just kind of getting the bolts back in place. Of course, the two that go up in the front here, I'm just getting that all hand threaded in, of course, at this point. I'm not gonna get too crazy yet. I want a lot of play on this tank still. So I just got those started, basically. That still gives me play on the tank so I can start working on these back ones. All right, and remember the 1/2-inch bolts, guys. I'm just reaching up in here, and I showed you guys this at the very beginning of the video in detail. These are the 2 bolts that go in the back of the oil tank. And so that's all I'm doing right now. These are all 1/2-inch, same with this 1/2-inch socket for up here. And I'm gonna get these hand tight. Okay, I've got my ratchet, and these, if you remember, are 3/8. And what they are is the 2 little bolts. There's the electrical panel back here. It just basically keeps everything organized. We just released that from the, and I showed you guys detailed shots of this, of course, when we were taking it apart. And I'm actually starting those and gonna get this panel back in place. All right, guys, and now I'm just taking my 3/8 and I'm tightening that electrical panel down, finishing that. And of course, once I get that all tightened down, the electrical panel's back on there, I'm gonna go through and I'm just tightening these back here, of course, for the back of the oil tank, and then I'm gonna move up front and tighten these down, get everything secured. Don't forget your splash guard. I'm just moving that up into place, of course. And then it had 2 bolts right at the bottom. And don't forget, I showed you guys a detailed shot of that tongue up in here. You wanna make sure and get it up over the tongue. All right, and then once you're over the tongue up in there, we can start putting these bolts in down here. All right, and so we've organized all the wire. We put zip ties back where they went. Each bike's gonna be different. Remember when we took it apart, guys, you'll wanna do that. And then, of course, getting our battery set back down in here. There we go. So I've got a couple things. Remember, I remembered, depends how many accessories you have. I've got just a couple accessories that I need to hook up when we're putting these terminals back on. All right, guys, nothing like the satisfaction of working on your Harley yourself right in your own garage. We saved a ton of money doing this project ourselves. The best part after a project, of course, ice cold frosty. Do not forget to put fluids back in. In this case, we drain the oil tank. Double check yourself and make sure you got fluids back in the oil tank. We do. All right, guys, hope the video was helpful, and we'll catch you on the next one. Peace out. If you're not subscribed to this YouTube channel, you are really missing out. We have a ton of videos in the works for you guys, so get subscribed. Also sign up for the free email club, lawabidingbiker.com/email club. We will shoot you an email when we come out with new free videos. Also, do not forget to check out that weekly podcast. It's the Law Abiding Biker Podcast. It's heard worldwide. All right, peace out.